This talk I'm going to share today is something sort of by popular demand. Often what I'll do is I'll come in and say, what would you guys like me to talk about? And then, we usually just try to weave about 30 different words that you folks throw out here, But this is something that the chaplains and I were talking about recently. So I want to share something about the concepts of abundance or prosperity. Now, not everybody struggles with it, but what's interesting is when I ask audiences, what would you like me to talk about? Even though the majority of the people in the room are struggling in some way financially, they rarely use that word. They'll say happiness, relationships, politics, or whatever. They'll throw out anything that's troubling them, but almost never do they bring up prosperity. It's probably the most needed word, other than sexual healing, that's really needed but not brought up in these kinds of groups. Now, it's really strange because one of our chaplains was sharing, they said, there's a church that my parents go to, and the income for each service is around, because her mother does, I guess, the collection, the counting at the end. It's around $50,000 per service. That's like 3 months' income for us, but it's like, wow, one service. So it's interesting because prosperity exists, but a lot of people will say to me, why in the spiritual New Age community does there seem to be lack? And I listen, you guys. I just hang back and listen. And this talk is going to be broad, not just financial, but broad. But I listen, and people will say, well, it's the folks in Sedona. Guys, I travel. I've been traveling for 40 years on tour. They say this just about anywhere. Oh, well, you know how it is here in Florida. You know how it is here in Hawaii. They have the same answer everywhere I go. Well, that's how it is here. It's not the region. It's actually more the spiritual community. So why are the New Agers having such lack, having such financial challenge? Are they hypocrites? Is it they're supposed to be prosperous, but really the traditional fundamental churches is where the money is? No, it's just that we don't guilt you into giving as much, but that's another story. So, but what is it? Why is the spiritual community, the more advanced, we call it, think it, to be advanced, why is there such financial struggle? There's a good answer for that. And the main answer, because I've taught a long time to these groups and to the folks online and around the world in the same situation. Usually the people in these groups have had their life collapse. That's one of the primary reasons. Because they're often divorcees or former relationship partners, or they lost jobs. And in other words, it's okay that we struggle a little more. If it's because we lack consciousness, then we need to call it. We need to be called out on it. We need to say, guys, how can we claim to be spiritual and struggle? Why would we be the most unhealthy group, whether it's physically or financially or psychologically? It's okay. Let's take a sigh of relief with that it's okay that we're not demonstrating wealth by human standards. I'm not saying we're going to stay there, but we just need to take a sigh because it's the truth. Not all of us, not all the time, but many in this kind of community around the world find a little bit of a struggle. So it's like, okay, so let's not make it a secret. Let's not look at it because we're embarrassed. Let's be okay with it. Another category is relationship issues. They're more present in a spiritual New Age group than in a mainstream community. Why? Because we're the ones who said the emperor is naked. We're the ones who left relationships, families, and so on. Family of origin, old traditions, old ways of thinking. So again, there's another category. A lot of people are like, why are there so many single people in the spiritual or New Thought kind of community? Because we crashed and we're looking for a new life. So it's actually a compliment, but it's not the end of the story. You don't want to say, guess what? The more broke you are and lonely you are, I guess that must mean you're spiritual. No, but it means that you have gone through the dark night of the soul. People that are in traditional situations, just like with their families, they're often still with families and still traditionally going to the same churches. There's not as much depth, not as much crashing into the dark night and surrendering to God. Therefore, there's also a mainstream traditional form of belief in God or whatever they believe in. In other words, it's surface level. You're always safer gliding on the surface. And if you think that you're going into spirituality at a deeper level may have helped cause some of your crash, I totally concur. So you could go back and just be a shallow person. You're probably much safer, probably going to have more money and more relationship. Not a lot of depth, not a lot of deep, true happiness, not a true prosperity, but you'll look like it. You'll seem like it. And if that's what you're looking for, don't get involved with groups that go deeper into things. Just glide. I'm great, and that's fine. Little chiclets for teeth, look at me. I just smile and bright white. Aren't I great? When you, I don't know, If you don't like what I'm saying, I'm just channeling it. Blame them. So we are all, tradition or non-traditional, we're all children of God and we're all going to go home. So it doesn't really matter, but some of us will wake up sooner and be the helpers to others who will sort of just be kind of carried along. It's not a free ride. Everybody has to still look at themselves. But the more work we do, we're almost lightening the load of what others will eventually have to look at. Now you're allowed to go, well, I want to be one of those. Then do it. I think your soul already knows where you really need to be. And if you chose to be one of the brave ones, I'm sorry. I know it can be a drag. You might say, well, wait, I want to, retract my vote. I want to be, you're not, you can't, because your soul knows. You're already too awake. Before you arrived, you were already too awake. Now, the fundamental Christians are going to say, well, if you started getting spiritual or religious and things started falling apart, that's the devil trying to tempt you into falling. If you're into new thought things, you're going to say, well, it's really just the ego or your lower self. Name it anything you want, but I can agree and tell you, when you decide to work on yourself more deeply, you're going to find deeper issues. The greater the light, the darker the shadow. So you start working on, like Viktor Frankl said, you want to hold light, be prepared to burn. You got to take a little of the heat. You can try not to work on yourself, but the idea that you're even watching a program like this, there's already at least a particle that wants to wake up and knows that there's no other way. So we're not going to ride this out. We're not going to sit it out and let other people do the work. If you're a part of this kind of a program, then you're in. However, where are we going with this program? Where are we going with this consciousness? The truth is, it's not the devil in the ego per se all the time. We're meant to have a thriving life. But it's true that the ego, lower self, devil, whatever, wants us to believe the more you try to grow, the harder it's going to be. So it does. It really does try to put stuff in our way to make us think we should go back the other way, go back to sleep. But we're waking up. So a lot of us have been taught, and guys, we've been taught this for thousands of years now. Devote to God, you need to be lonely and broke. It was the world of being priests and nuns. It's just like lonely and broke, but you're devoted to God. Well, God never said, if you want to get close to me, you need to be lonely and broke. But God's voice of love would have agreed that you do need to let the old you die. And if you have old beliefs about money and partnership and whatever else, those do need to die, which ends up looking like you're lonely and broke. But that's not the end of the story, because everything in this universe goes through 3 stages. The honeymoon stage, the disenchantment stage, and then reconnecting with the truth. Prosperity, abundance, love, richness. But you can't just jump to that one. You've got to viscerally go through it. From the time we were created, we seem to have separated from God. Now, you can't really separate from all that is. Doesn't make any sense. Once we were part of all that is, and then we left. Wait, You just said it's all that is. Where did you go? To another part of the all that is. And another part. And then I went to the east side of all that is. And the north side of it. It's all that is. You can't leave it. That's the good news. The bad news is you can pretend you left. And we did. That's why all the greats and all the indigenous peoples describe this world as a dream world. We're dreaming the world into being, and that's what we've done. The children of God said, what would it be like if we could separate? And so it became, what would it if we could? It's just an imagined experience. And in that experience, the children of God went, what have we done? Seemingly separated. And so we went on this long trek into the universe, material world. And in that world, we said, well, if we did separate, we're really bad and we're really undeserving. And you and I have been spending millions of years trying to pay for that. Penance. In metaphysical terms, it's called karma and reincarnation. If, you just reincarnate enough, eventually you're going to be deserving of going home. The few people in history that ever even did the work like that, the long payment plan, to become enlightened enough, guess what they said when they got there? Christ being foremost, when they got there. It's, guess what? You had it all along, Dorothy. Click your heels together. There's no place like home. And you realize you had those slippers all along. Now, why the fairy godmother didn't tell her? Wow. To sell her another set of shoes. I don't know, but she didn't tell her. But we have it within us. There's no place like home. We have it within us. So Christ is simply saying, you're only returning to who you already are. He's saying, all the things I've done and you will do and more. The good news, some people call the Bible is the good news of the Lord. It isn't every word and page number that is the good news of the Lord. The good news of the Lord is what's found in there is the good news is you. That everything you thought you became isn't true. You've been abused in every form, verbally, physically, financially. We have done abuses in this life or another. Enough lifetimes, you're going to pay it all. You're not. It's really bad odds. There's been 1 trillion souls in existence and only a couple ever completely woke up. Those are bad odds. So don't bank on that. Instead, you rest and say, I don't know. I don't know how. Let me, instead of trying to perfect myself, let me accept the perfection that God already created. And affirm that and live that. And then just act like it once in a while. Because you can't just go, man, I am as God created me, and look at that person. Oh, they're ugly, and they're this and that. That's not living it. I am as God created me. What would that look like? I was just thinking some unkind thoughts, but wait, I am as God created me, so how would I think instead? And you correct it. Little micro adjustments along the way. But the good news is, I'm already a God goddess. I'm already a divine being. And I forgot. So all I need to do is let go and let God, as they say. Remembrance. I don't have to fix myself. There are traditions that tell us we're worms, we're sinful worms, and others that tell you the opposite. Oh no, you're almost ascended. You just need to snort a little more comfrey tea. You need to just stand on one foot and, pranayama, eyes to the third eye, and la 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 la, So do all these bizarre things, and you got to realize what the people on the other side are thinking, like, I'm almost there. Ram, lama, 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 I'm almost there. And they're like, wow. So we're just as dysfunctional in all the doings to become spiritual as we are the non-doings to stay unspiritual. And it's better to do the spiritual of the two, but ultimately we'll get there to the point where we say, I had it all the time. God, this is really cool. I think I'll tell somebody else. Hey, guess what? And they, like you, won't believe it. But each generation's going to believe it sooner. And the main way you get it across to them is they sense it in your confidence. If you doubt it when you tell them, then they know it's lip service. So you have to believe it. You have to know it. Even though I mess up, I know the truth, that I'm already there. There's a lot less angst. There's a lot less work at it. Instead, it just sort of comes to me. There's different meanings to so many of the teachings, obviously, throughout the world, whether it's Buddha, Krishna, whomever, and including Jesus. When he says things like, don't be anxious of what to say. When you are hauled into the courts, let me speak through you. Now, did he only mean this is like legal advice? No. Who do you think he was talking to and about what? He's saying any time that you're dragged in the court of your mind, every time you are brought before your ego, who's going to say, you're not getting any younger. You're lonely. Your mother was right about you. And all the other things that the head's going to tell you. He's saying, don't be anxious. In other words, don't believe what you hear. Let me speak for you. It means I'm going to change voices. I hear you, Mom. I hear you, Dad. I'm never enough. Wait a minute. Is that even possible to be the voice of God? I don't think so. And if it is, then fundamental traditions were right and I'm going to end up in hell because I'm not good enough. So it's not going to do me any good to mess with this at all. Or it's not the voice of God. God is but love, and therefore so am I. So God is love. And if God is love, what does God want from me? Long payment plan? Well, God's not saying, I want you to reincarnate 8,000 times before you're allowed to come home. But God will say, if that's what you believe you need to get here, fine. I'll just be waiting either way. Just FYI, there's a shortcut. But that's okay. If you want to take several thousand lives, that's fine. I wouldn't advise it, but that's okay. Little slipping in that other message. That other message comes through few teachers that say we're already there. That doesn't mean the part of us that is hurtful to others is there. I'm saying there's a part of us that never even left and a part of us that has already remembered going home. The rest is just dragging its feet. Why would I drag my feet? Generally, because I'm afraid. Almost the only possible reason. I'm afraid. Afraid of what? Because you're afraid that God is as screwed up as you are. We're afraid that God is waiting to judge me when I get to the other side the way I judge myself every day. People can't even have a bite of a donut without going, this is going to go straight to my hips. It's like, if you can't get past a bite of a donut, what are you going to do on the other side? Oh, I just know these flames are going to burn me now. I just know. It's such harshness. So, the saying, we have to get over ourselves. We have to go, what if I'm wrong about God, that I'm going to pay dearly for all that I've ever done? A great saying, God created man in its own image. But then there's a twist. And then man created God in its own image. That's on the back of Jethro Tull album. But still, that's where I got that. But who knows where it's going to come from. But man created God in his own image. We created a judgmental God. And there's no such thing. But that's what we've done. So the truth is, every time you hear a voice that is in any way harsh, judgmental, or harsh in any way, no, you have to be the one to say, is that God? I can tell you it's not, but you have to actually believe it. You have to viscerally get that is absolutely not God. Great. Let's do the other half then. Then what is God? Well, and now this is called channeling. What is God? Hypothetically, if I got the fear part out, I got to get that out or it's going to filter the channeling. So I got to get that part out, then bring in the real thing. God, what are you? I am but love. Then how would you have me deal with this phone call I have to do? How would you have me deal with this food that I'm eating that people say is naughty or whatever? How would you have me look and start channeling new answers? You don't need to get on a soapbox and start spouting it as though it's the only truth in the universe, but it is true for you right now. I've had people say, like a Course in Miracles, students of the Course, this is the only, and Urantia and everything else, this is the only. Oh, everybody's saying this is the only. And Course students even saying, there's only one interpretation of the Course. Well, that's technically impossible, because the Course itself tells you, that you need to ask the Holy Spirit for an interpretation for you. And that's called channeling again. Is it the highest you'll ever know? Probably not. It'll evolve. At first it might start with a little, I'm not so bad, and eventually it'll evolve to, I am as God created me. You know, it'll go from a little bit working the stuff to the highest principles. And there are so many topics that we feel basically reflect our undeservability. We think we separated from God, and we think, okay, now we're apart from God, undeserving now. So I'm going to pay past lives or, future lives. I'm going to pay penance, karma. In God, there's no retribution because in God, nothing of this has even happened. It's a dream. And so God wills that we remember, which means to remember the dismembered parts. You're not over there and I'm over here. I don't have an emotional self and an intellectual self. When I remember all the dismembered parts, I become one. And then who is there to hate? I really dislike that part of me. That's all it ever is. I want to marry that part of me. Oh, that part of me is really hot. That part of me is so talented. You're just sounding schizophrenic. I mean, it doesn't go anywhere. She, it's just, they're all just shadows. Spiritual enlightenment means we're past that. And we see people as they really are. Mainly first as reflections of ourselves. Once we basically retire them from being reflections of ourselves, we rise to seeing that they and we are all light. We're all just the light of God. Now, when we get that, we can ascend, but it doesn't work that way. First, there's a nightmare on earth. Then the nightmare becomes a happy dream. Then the happy dream surrenders to the oneness with God. It's those stages. Just like we have the honeymoon in life, we come to earth, and people, it's kind of a honeymoon. Oh, and we're getting by. Look at my honeymoon. I'm here on earth. Oh, and I got a partner. Look, probably the only one I'll ever have. Oh, probably not. So this is the only one, okay? And then, now we're going to have kids. Oh, aren't we great? And, then you cap it off with a Disneyland visit or all these happy things. And as long as you make enough and your credit cards are high enough, limits and all this stuff, and that's the honeymoon stage of life. The second stage is when someone hacked your cards. You found out you get to Disneyland and they refuse your cards. You call work and they're closed for the holidays because you can't get money from them either. The things you think are precious, they're gone. That's the dark night of the soul. That's the start, like a sort of a small version of the dark night of the soul. In our lives, the things we think are just so precious, the things we think are wonderful, they must pass away because the honeymoon is over. All of a sudden, the one and only, they found someone else. The kids, as long as they get straight A's, well, they dropped out. How could you drop out after all I've done for you? And I've saved up for college. By the way, Mom, can I have that cash? Because I got other ideas. None of it goes the way you planned. So the first stage of being on earth is just an illusion. It's a honeymoon, meaning the dressing. That has to die so that you can find pure unhappiness. No, that's not the goal. But you will. You will have to die to be born again. So I lived, I died, born again. Almost nobody makes it to that third stage. And all of us, it is our destiny to make it to that third stage. And in the meantime, while we're on earth, God is saying, look, you have what you think is a happy situation, but that's just shallow. That's I'm getting by financially. I'm going to support the universe's tendency to have everything in this universe dies, so including your opinions and your prosperities, gone, so that you can have a real one. I'm going to share a couple Bible quotes, but one of them is essentially saying that if it doesn't come from God, it won't last. So, in a sense, what I'm leading to is, guys, God is saying to us, even though you think you're away from me, you're still made in my image. So while you're on a strange vacation, to a place you've never gone to, but a place you seem to be, this nightmarish experience, I still want you to be prosperous. God actually wants us to be healthy and wealthy and prosperous and in consciousness in every form. We actually took on these beliefs that were undeserving, but also religious indoctrination, religious programming that says you have to be without romance or sensualities or money. We bought these. These are just crazy. And there's so many ways that we can hear the truth, which is you're meant to be prosperous. Here's a couple quick quotes. For example, a couple of them from philosophers and a couple from the Bible. Bible first. Beloved, I wish above all things that you would prosper. These are God's messages to us. That's not what I was brought up with. I was brought up with money doesn't grow on trees and all these other. And here's God saying, my beloved, I wish above all things that you prosper. Whoa, I like this. Challenge me to open the windows of heaven and pour you out a blessing that there would not be room enough to receive it. They shall prosper that love thee, O God. Peace be within all the walls and prosperity within our homes. There are those who give and yet increase. How do you give and increase at the same time? When you give, you lose. No, the scriptures are telling us there are those who give and yet increase. But then there are those who tend towards poverty. You know, they try to keep and they tend towards poverty. Or honor the Lord with thy substance, with the first fruits of all your increase or your income. That's called tithing. Or every plant that God has not planted will be uprooted. What I'm saying is that whether it's romance that you got because you wanted it, not because it was right and meant to be and guided. You wanted it, so you grabbed it. I don't want to be alone. Or they're pretty. Just sparkly stuff. Ooh, I want that. And it's going to be uprooted. But the same with, I got a job. I made myself. My family didn't have much. I made myself into a prosperous person. Nobody can take that from you, they tell you. If it's not rooted in God, it's going to get uprooted. True prosperity is a consciousness, not a lottery. It's a true consciousness. Oscar Wilde said, there's only one class of people that think about money more than the rich people, and that's poor people. He says, in fact, the poor can think of nothing else. Emerson, man was born to be rich or inevitably to grow rich. Ernest Holmes, success and prosperity are spiritual attributes belonging to all people, not necessarily used by all people. Emmett Fox, man has dominion over all things. The law gives you power to obtain prosperity. Joel Goldsmith, let us learn to think of dollars as we do leaves on trees or oranges, as a natural, inevitable result of the law active within. There is truly no need to be concerned even when the tree appears to be bare, as long as we are conscious of the truth that the law is even now still operating within to bring forth fruit when it's time. And Plato, a grateful mind is a great mind, which eventually attracts good things to itself. Philosophers and great thinkers and new thought thinkers and Bible, all telling us we deserve good things, guys. And for you, it could be like, I'm already prosperous, but it's health. You deserve good health. It's only our former beliefs, old, worn out beliefs that tell us we deserve anything less. Or for you, it could be, I do good with health and I'm fairly prosperous, but partnership, there's no part that should be barren. We did a talk here. I won't go into it all again, but we've done a talk. You can get the video. It's Spirituality Volume 4, a talk on the laws of prosperity. So you can go and check it out if you want. But the bottom line, if I'm not rich in mind, body, and soul, something's off. I don't have to shame myself or blame myself, but something's off. So I will take measures to correct it. No, what I'll do is blame my boss for not getting a raise. I'll blame my partner for not having enough intimacy or affection or love towards me. I'll blame and I'll blame and I'll blame. That's not what truly spiritual awakened people do. They bring it here and say, wow, isn't this funny? There's God and I'm made in God's image and God wills that I be prosperous, and yet I'm struggling in whatever category of life. I'm struggling. Now, maybe God ran out today. No. Maybe others have the power to keep my good from me. No, that's not responsibility, nor is it true. So then where could the problem be? Me? What do I need to do? Blame, shame? No. I start doing my work. Uprooting the old belief systems that made me think I'm undeserving. In a word, forgiveness. People don't realize that forgiveness can do anything, because anything that isn't already happening would only be lacking because of a belief system that doesn't allow it. So I need to forgive myself for whatever that thing is. Stinking thinking, some people call it. So when we look at, life, we look at this world, we realize that the churches of the Middle Ages started teaching us something different. Instead of the laws of abundance, the churches started saying, the church will be wealthy and you will be broke. I mean, that became the whole system. It's amazing. Wow, how'd they pull that off? But they did. Everything changed. The people are to be poor. And they taught that an imbalance in the ecosystem. The Israelites were taught a spiritual ecosystem. The people will give to the teachers, the teachers will give to the centers will give to the people, who will give back to the teachers. It was this perfect system. The Western world, churches and so on, said instead, you will give to us, the end. It was a linear dead end. They cash in and everybody else goes broke. You know what happened? The Dark Ages, because an imbalance took place. You can kill people emotionally and then they die every other way. The Dark Ages came because the souls of people were already murdered. You were already telling people it was just death and hell awaiting you. There was no chance for a better life. You can't even do that to plants. Even plants would hear you. If you went out to a plant and did a ceremony ritual every day, telling it how much you hated it, how worthless it was, it will stunt its growth if not kill it. That's been proven in experiments. And yet plants have been shown love. Oh, I just love you. You're so rich. Look at you. You're beautiful. Look at you. You're bountiful. It's amazing. And they seem to respond. You think people don't have at least the brains of a plant? They're hearing the programs. The problem is they're believing it, just like the plant. Programming will set in any level of consciousness, except a divine one. So we have to say, no, I don't agree. This isn't the truth of God. So I'm going to choose something else. Tell the plant you love it. Tell your pocketbook you love it, instead of the fear. One of the things I learned a long time ago, when I was a young guy, man, I was like, all of a sudden involved with some business and some spiritual centers. And I saw they asked for my help to look at the situation. And I remember just feeling the number of bills they had. And it was easy just to just give up or feel dismay from this reality check. Okay, I think I'll do something else. I'm going to make a list of the bills and divide and conquer. We're going to make a list of the bills and pay 1 today, 2 tomorrow, 3 next week, or whatever, but you go after it. Hiding from your bills will not actually get them paid. But what you will be doing is empowering them against you. They have power over. And every time you open another bill and you act like it's a demon, under your bed, or some boogeyman, it's like, oh my God, that gives it a power and energy against you, and you're the only co-creator in this planet. The paper has no power over us, yet it wreaks havoc. So all of these things have to change. And we live in a very manic depressive relationship with prosperity. Manic would be like overspending and you go broke. Depressive is overly clenching and you're already emotionally broke. No more manic depressive. I want a steady onwards and upwards, a steady growth in consciousness. When people say to me, man, I want to win the lottery, great, that would be great. But what I recommend to people is a steady growth in consciousness so that it's visceral. Most people that win the lottery, as you know, lose the money shortly thereafter. Far more often than people who are really used to being prosperous have a lull in their prosperity. They seem to know how to get it again. But prosperity, steady as she goes, grow in consciousness. I don't want my prosperity to be a lottery. I don't want it to hit me one day and be gone the next. I want this to be real. I want to feel it all the time. Is that making sense? And people typically don't choose that long-term prosperity or any other consciousness. I don't want to be healthy just like one-time healing and then be sick again the next day. I want a shift in my consciousness. I want a shift in my lifestyle. I want a shift in everything. So don't just go for a quick fix healing with someone, although it's fine to do as long as you'll sustain it. I had a miracle. What did Jesus say time after time? Go and sin no more. Get the miracle and sustain it. Get the prosperity and sustain it. Win the lottery and don't now, call all the relatives you didn't have the day before and have them all show up wanting money. Do the same thing a wealthy person, because you're now wealthy, should do. Start looking at it as, how do I budget it? How do I do this and invest it? Think the way wealthy people would think. And if you're not, it's because it's called an addiction to being poor. Nobody would want to admit that they're addicted to poverty. But when you're doing something repeatedly, it's called an addiction, especially when you're expecting it to change and it doesn't change. Another drink doesn't actually make you a better person or feel better. It just seems like it, and then it's gone. And it's the same with money. Everyone has to have a healed consciousness with prosperity, and prosperity is only one category. People do not, it's so amazing how quickly we mess up the whole notion of prosperity. There's a Buddha. Oh, you mean Buddha, they shave the head, wear a robe, and it's a bowl, so it's poverty. No, Buddhism started with the recognition that you have several levels of prosperity. That if you're a good person, you will inevitably, karmically gain not only a good smile, a good gift of speech, a warmth, a sense of good person. The good karma didn't mean you're supposed to just walk around looking meek and meager. Buddha himself's talking about all the gifts of prosperity, one of them being long life. Oh, why would you want a long life? It's an illusion. Because while you're in the dream, you're supposed to have a happy dream. So Buddha himself, long life, persuasive speech as they call it. Prosperity is one of them, though, of these 8. Prosperity. I thought Buddhists are against. No. Religions often twist things, but no. How could Buddha say that? He's saying, if I, Buddha, believe in karma, and you're wealthy, it had to have been good karma. Why would I shame it? I'm going to tell you, good job. And if you say, and I'm also very pretty or handsome or whatever, he says, good job, you must have earned it. But the rest of the sentence, no matter what your compliment is, what are you going to do with it? Use your persuasive speech. Use your gift of presence. Use your prosperity, he says, to bring people to the light. That's it. Use it in the right way. It's in a sense, learning, not attachment to money, not attachment to perfect health and perfect teeth, not an attachment to it, but also not a detachment. Oh, I must get rid of. Let me remove all my teeth so I'm not attached to a good smile. Let me shave my head. Let me have nothing. That's overly detached. Just in the center, non-attachment. To have and be open. And that's why one of the primary gifts to creating abundance has always been tithing. A handful of the simple laws to prosperity. Put God first. God first in all things. God first. God first. Seek first the kingdom. Seek abundance consciousness, not money. Seek wholeness, not health. Seek the consciousness. That's one. Tithing is another one. Why is tithing, and every time churches or centers or synagogues talk about tithing, it really intimidates people because people have such a charge about money. So they'll go, oh God, I went to yoga class today and they were talking about fundraising, and everybody's always about money. Again, poor people think about it more than rich people. And you're obsessed on not having just as much as you think other people are obsessed on having. Spiritual centers have bills to pay. And they're being of the greatest possible service you can imagine. Tithing isn't saying, well, I gave an extra tip to a waitress. Tithing is, I'm taking a portion of my income and I'm going to give it to the place of my spiritual food. Whether it's a teacher online, whether it's a center, whether it's an author. Even if you have no centers you go to, but there's an author that made a difference in your life, consider donations. And I know all the heady stuff against it. I know, oh yeah, there's money, always about money. Guys, it's not. It's about showing the flow back. I received and I'm demonstrating gratitude. Gratitude means I really own that I got something. But there's more to it. When I give, forget that, because there's no God in the sky says, okay, ka-ching, every donation on Sundays. There's no God doing that. It's my dedication. It's my growth, the tithing thing. Oh, it's helping my church. It's you that's being helped in ways you don't imagine. Yes, it keeps doors open of your spiritual centers. You're gaining and you have no idea how much. I have absolutely gained more prosperity-wise from what I give than by where I reside. It's, I'm here, and is it my income here? Not at all. But I can tell you this, my giving, I can feel it, I can see it, I can sense it, that when I give, it becomes this wave that comes back. Give verbally, yes, but also I give financially. I'm probably, I don't know if that I can't even imagine any spiritual leader that could say this. I'm probably the number one, and if not the number one, it's the number 2 largest tither to Unity of Sedona. I'm supposed to get paid for working here, aren't I? Why am I giving, because I have it. Not I'm rich, not at all. It's just that every month I have income, like most of us. There's income, so I give back. Well, why don't I just keep it? I would have more. As soon as I constrict, I would not have more. You've already started growing, so you know this. So you can't get away with cheating financially. Your soul, you already have too much of a spiritual conscience. So once you start tithing and knowing the truth, you're not going to get away with chintzing it back. I made myself get in the habit of tithing. And one way I did it was I told my accountant, take money every month before you show it to me. Just to make sure I wasn't tempted to go, well, I could use that. Take it before I even see it. Do whatever works for you. Piggy bank or whatever's going to work for you. Just do something. And, and the prosperity, the tithing, it's a consciousness. Watch. If you say, Michael, or to you, why don't you tithe? Well, I can't afford, but when I can afford, I'll tithe. There are villages in some cultures that I won't name. They say that when the village is struggling financially, they all tithe more to turn things around. Or another saying, I can't afford to tithe. No, you can't afford not to tithe. It's a whole belief system, but I also get that it has been abused by some systems, churches and whatever. It truly has. So it's made everybody feel a little bit used, raw, judgmental, and so on about it. But I know it's the truth, because what happens is when I say, I think I'm going to tithe, when I'm giving, it's the consciousness. When I say I'm going to tithe, you know what it means? I can afford to. When I don't, it means I believe I can't afford to. Guess what the universe says? And so it is. But I don't have it. I mean, how do you expect me to afford it when I don't have it? And so it is. And so it is. And that's all the mother ever says. And so it is. I'm just here to mirror and reflect to you your consciousness. Okay, fine. I'm going to tithe $1. You happy? And so it is. I can afford to tithe, because when you gave $1, it meant I can afford $1. The universe says every bit you think you can afford, we're going to multiply. It's true. It's not just this investment scheme. Give to us and your prosperity is going to double, quadruple, 10 times, tenfold, as they say. It's the consciousness. Give. Giving to the waitress is not tithing. Give to your spiritual center. But for me, I also give to the waitress. I don't count it as a tithe. I call it as a gift. I count it as a gift. It's just because. Just because. When I was really struggling, in my early 20s financially, I can remember going to a gas station, and I was living in Southern Oregon for just a couple of years, and they would actually, it was mandatory that they pump gas for you. So when I had gas pumped, guys, I didn't have any money. But if I had $10 and I pumped $6 worth of gas, I gave the rest to the guy who pumped the gas for me. It doesn't make any sense. You're not supposed to. It's his job. I don't want to hear this crap from people. It's their job. It's a waitress. It's her job. Give. Just keep giving. I don't care how much. Give, and you'll find your consciousness says, and so it is, and you'll have more to give. And again, I'm not claiming, I'm not even one that's ever even had a savings account. But over the last many years of my life, I've tried to, play that game too and, take care of this and that. So my prosperity consciousness just grows. No sense of lack. Since, God, I don't even, 30 years now, not a lot of lack. In my 20s, yeah. But then in the next 30 years of my life, just growing and growing steady as she goes. I wouldn't be shocked if I won the lottery tomorrow. And if I did, I would still give. I wouldn't just start writing checks to just any charities. I would rather give to individuals. That's my tendency. But it would be wherever I'm guided. Give and give and give and give. Make life different for people with your smile. And make life different for people with your money. Use affirmations to increase prosperity. Positive affirmation, it programs the mind. Remember the technique of ask, believe, and receive. But the word believe is usually left out of that. Ask and you shall receive. Ask and you... No! You have to ask and believe and you'll receive. But here's the trick. Whatever you believe is what you're going to receive. You got to get that word back in there. It's supposed to be there. You're already asking. It doesn't mean you need to ask. You're already asking. Asking what? Whatever you believe. Your beliefs are always asking, and you will receive based on your beliefs. And if you think, I don't have it, then you don't. And I'm not the spiritual leader, teacher, minister, whatever they want to call these people. I'm not one that says, just give and the Lord will take care. If I think you're struggling and you tried to hand me money as a donation, I would say, let's wait. I do this a lot with people. I had a gal one time say, I'm going to give $50,000 here to Unity of Sedona. I said, don't. Break it in parts. Break it in parts, because if you gave that amount, my contract here allows me to get a portion of that. Break it up and I won't get so much. Now, why would I do that? Prosperity would have been, yes, please do. And then I would get money. The greater good was break it down into payments. I won't get any. I don't need it today. When I need it, Spirit's going to say, you really did a good thing there. And one time when somebody was being challenging, attendant here, that person stood up and said, I just want to share. One time I tried to write a check and Michael refused it and asked me to break it in payments so that he wouldn't get any of it. So when it was time, that person shared. You see, Spirit's going to take care of us. I know that's not always easy to believe. Maybe part of the reason I believe it is because I do this all the time. But then why aren't you? I don't mean standing at a podium. I mean living it and really believing these things. I know that there was a time in my life when I thought, no. God, I mean, seriously, tithing, and in my early 20s, tithing? I mean, how do you do that? I mean, I can barely make bills. I know all that. $1. You don't have to tithe 10%. That's the tradition. Tithe $1. And the dollar will become 10. One student of mine that was totally financially up creek, majorly in debt, sat with me on the phone, and in an hour, we turned everything around, the direction, what they were going to do with their cards and whatever else. Swear to God, this person, probably within a year later, was tithing to me as much as they were once making each week in a check. It works. I'm not trying to give a speech about everybody go tithe. I'm saying prosperity is a consciousness. Seek first the consciousness and let it come to you. We have to break this whole thing that says New Age, spiritual people, lonely and broke. We've got to break that. And to break that, we have to start taking actions as well as shifting the thoughts and beliefs. Remember the power of giving thanks. Remember the power of gratitude and giving thanks, even before you see it. I'm giving thanks that today I learn all new lessons on how to accept abundance. And then you say, oh, look, $1 on the ground, $1. Seriously? I mean, is that some sort of joke? Why couldn't I find a bag of money? Be faithful with what you have and more will be added. Say thank you for the $1 and then watch what happens. Say thank you with a charitable heart. Believe in these things. You'll still have struggles and challenges and doubts occasionally, but you'll answer them with a different voice. Instead of, oh, that figures. A friend of mine found a $100 bill. I found $1. That figures. That mindset is why you have $1 instead of 100. It's why you can't even, cure a splinter and you want to cure cancer. Work on the splinter and say, thank God, that was nice, that was easy. Everything that you cure, everything that you heal, your better friendships. Well, yeah, I do have better friendships, but I had 10 friendships before. Yes, and they were horrible, right? Yeah, but I had 10. Now I only have 2, but they're great, right? Yeah, but there's only 2. That's human ego lack thinking. Be really happy. Be really happy about the good things you have. The great things that are coming your way. Know ahead of time. This whole thing's changing. And don't forget the power of focus. You can't just kind of wispily, horizontally go, well, I hope this works. You also have to put that faith and focus into it. Really ask and believe, and you will receive. Really get into believe. When you tithe, don't just go, I better put $5 in the bag, $20 in the bag because everybody's watching. That's not the right spirit. Really believe. Sit there, and even if you have $0 in your hand, pretend you're holding a $20 bill. Place it over that bag for a moment and picture that you're dropping it in there. Just do what you can. When I was a kid and made to go to church, I still had that feeling. I would get out my little kid wallet and take out my little kid money. Might be $1 or $2 and think, I'm a kid, I only have $2. I did, I had those thoughts. Something would happen and I would go, let me just give it anyway. How do I know that that wasn't the beginning of all of this prosperity consciousness? My life is pretty good. It's pretty good. I don't have $1 million in the bank yet, but my life is pretty good. I have a lot of people that say they love me. A lot of people that feel like they appreciate what I do. If I died tomorrow, that would be enough. But you're on earth and I'm on earth, so we have bills to pay, and it's okay. It's okay for you. You don't have to go, well, I guess I'm just going to be grateful for this car that is driving like this down the freeway. No, get ready because you can have a better car. And I was the type to go, well, I can't afford a car, And then it just happened where one day somebody taught me, a dealership or whatever, a friend or whatever. You can get a car and make payments. Now, since that was all my consciousness would accept at the time, not just to get a car, but rather car with payments. But I had a nice car for the first time in my life. There was no draft. It had all its windows and everything. You follow? It didn't have fumes coming in to put me to sleep while I'm driving. This is a good thing. Well, yeah, but it's payments, because that's all I was ready for at the time. You see? Prosperity, the consciousness, it grows, and people have such a hard time understanding it. Get rid of the garbage thinking around this. I can't afford, whatever your situation. When I was married and had little ones, sometimes they would say, Dad, we would like to get a TV or whatever. And I would say, okay, no, but Mom says we can't afford. So I'd have to have a tactful conversation with her. Do me a favor, and instead of saying we can't afford, let's just say, all right, let's put that out there. So I taught my kids, whatever you want. Let's put it out there. Let's create that. I did my best for the time, to do that. Believe in this. If you come to me as a client, Michael, I'd like to create this. Oh, no, you can't afford that. What kind of spiritual counselor am I? I believe. I do. I believe that we can create anything. But create it with God, not from your ego self. I know that your head can create things. I don't want that. So when I'm going to create something, it's God's will. I use this, connecting with the Spirit of God in the form of love and happiness. Then I know whatever I'm going to create, if it resonates with love and happiness, then I know it's God's will. If it doesn't resonate, I better back away. Even if it's a partnership, step back. But I'm lonely. Shh. Does it seem like happiness? Yeah. Really? Why are you hesitating? Well, they got restraining orders and so forth, but still, back away. Oh, fine. I guess I'll back away. Okay, watch God. I'm going to back away and just go back to my lonely life over here. Don't pull that. That's just your consciousness leaking in again. It's not the truth. You're going to play the lonely card so that you get that person now, which is called an addiction. What you really want, truly, really want, is only God. Because that's the only thing we think we're missing. If you have God, you have everything else. How could you ever say, well, can you picture hanging out with Jesus? Jesus, I got this sore throat, but I know you're really busy. So you just ask. Scriptures never tell us. And Jesus was notteth in the righteth moodeth to bring a healing to thine body. We never heard that. When you have the presence of God, nothing's missing. They found coins in a fish. There's nothing missing. You won't feel the presence of God and say, if only. If only what? When I feel the connection of consciousness with God, my mind is rich. My mind is rich. And then all of a sudden, ideas come, a book, a new computer app, whatever it is, your mind, it'll be rich, fertile. Now, if your consciousness says, my fertility is in the form of creativity, great. That's rich. Let it be rich. If it's a form of finances or whatever else, my take personally is I believe we can have it everywhere. I think you can be prosperous creatively. I think you can be financially prosperous. I think your health can be radiant. I'm all for it. I'm not trying to sound entitled, but I'm entitled. I'm a child of God. I can have anything and everything. Not just anything, everything. As long as I drop into the consciousness of God. If I separate and ask, now you're going to be narcissistic, psychopathic, and every other harmful, disconnected mindset. Well, I deserve, I'm entitled from an ego place. When you're plugged in, you are righteously deserving of all these good things. So I'm going to close with this. Typically we do the donations after the talk. We're going to have some prayers I'm going to share with you. Decrees, I call them. So I'm going to share maybe a half dozen brief decree prayers about healing root chakra, healing physical consciousness, financial consciousness. And then after that, we usually do a donation, a collection. Now, when I do a talk like this, and I'm going to talk about prosperity consciousness, a lot of people, some would have been watching online and already disconnected. Oh, it's a guy talking about money, that means he wants money. Well, I have almost no greater joy than to deal with people like that properly. And so what I'm going to do is, just when you would think that that's why I'm doing a talk on prosperity, you are welcome when you're leaving to leave donations in the baskets when you're going. Otherwise, you don't need to leave a donation today. Okay? Because I've written a check that's going to cover everybody today. That's not because I had tons, but I had enough. So I wrote a check that's going to cover everybody today so that we can reprogram this thing that says those teachers are always wanting. They're always asking. And even though we have bills to pay, I'm still going to say you're wrong. It's not always about that. So this is a demonstration. I could have done it quietly, but I need to do it this way because it's a demonstration. Let's break the BS. Let's break these false belief systems. So I've written enough would be the equivalent of what we made last week on our donations. So that'll cover everybody. So you don't have to leave a donation. If you want to, feel free. That's fine. But I got it. Okay? So I appreciate you hearing and understanding. Now apply it. Okay? Apply it. How can you make a difference? How can you be prosperous? I do this, but can you just give a couple extra dollars to a waitress? Never go beyond what you can afford physically, financially, emotionally, etc. That's called boundaries. I checked, make sure that I have the funds in there, and then write the check. If I had have only had half the funds, I would have been, that doesn't have the impact. I don't want to say, hey, everybody, I'm going to give half the amount. I'd rather say, let me just write a check for the amount we made last week. So do what you can afford. Don't give more hugs than you can afford. Don't give more smiles than you. If you're really, really hurting, you don't have to muster up a smile. just go ahead and hurt. Geez, you could make a difference in someone's life just by being vulnerable and saying, I'm hurting too much to smile today. That's a gift for us, as it is that you do smile when you feel the smile. All I know is whatever I am, I am. And my I am is becoming more and more the present self, any of us. So I am smiling more because I am smiling inside. I'm prosperous giving on the outside because I feel prosperous on the inside. That's how it should look. Too often people aren't feeling it and they're faking it. They're not feeling it and they're leaking out not feeling it, which hurts others, but often they also just fake it. Heal the self and shine only a real light. No more synthetic light, but a real light. That's the term, Israel light. We all have to become Israel lights. Yeah. Okay? And they are the chosen people. How could I be a real light and not be chosen? If I'm a real light, then I'm part of the light of God. So in that sense, it's true. It's not about a person, it's about a state of consciousness. I appreciate you guys listening and understanding this. Please take a few centering breaths. For just a few minutes, we're going to focus. These prayers are meant to be said with passion, with gusto, with belief, with conviction. They're decrees. They're not beggings. They're decrees of the truth of God. And first, we're calling upon you, Father, Mother, God, asking that you help us clear our consciousness, beliefs that are rooted in our chakras, our spiritual centers, our states of consciousness. We choose today to allow these to be released and replaced with something new. And to open our centers, we use that powerful prayer. In the name of my Holy Father, Mother God, the Holy Son, the Christ, which is my true self, and the Holy Spirit, I affirm the presence of complete holiness in and around me, thus making sacred my spirit, mind, and body. I affirm the guidance and assistance of my elder brother Jesus, my spiritual sister Mary Magdalene, my protector Archangel Michael, and my beloved mother Mary, and all the ascended masters of light. I call them into this present moment. I call them into this ceremony, this healing, this launching into a new life. My Father, Mother God, whose presence is heaven and is within all life, sacred and holy is your name, the I am within me. Your kingdom and will are manifest here and now through each righteous choice I make, just as it is in heaven. Bring to me this and every day all that you will to draw me closer to my remembrance of the divine Christ within me, and teach me to be as forgiving as you. I joyously choose your holy voice as my guide through moments of both inspiration and challenge, thus receiving all the gifts you intend for me. I gratefully affirm that my will is no longer apart from your divine will. Instead, my will is your will is my will. Therefore, I choose to rise above my ego so that you can deliver me from all illusionary forces that seem to manipulate me in mind, body, or soul. I vow to be more of God's kingdom and to extend this kingdom each day. I joyously surrender all ego manifestations of separation, and instead I allow my physical and material life to reflect more and more the consciousness of God. And now the decrees themselves. I joyously surrender the ego manifestations that say, as God's children, we must remain financially poor or limited. In God, there is no lack or poverty. I am made in God's image, and therefore I experience no lack or poverty. God's will is for my financial abundance and freedom. I will be the will of God made manifest on earth, therefore I will be prosperous. I demand the manifestation of God's will of abundance for me and for all God's creation. I am as God created me. I will to be the Christ on earth. I joyously surrender ego manifestations of a planetary force that controls this economy. I call forth the manifestation of God's will in which all people are free to live an abundant life. My Christ self exposes and consumes the ego manifestations of lack and limitation. I am free of this illusion, and I know that lack is a product of my ego's sense of separation. I accept that with God all things are possible. Through my I am presence, I transcend all limitations. I am as God created me. I will to be the Christ on earth. I joyously surrender the ego manifestations of lack and limitation. Such beliefs and their manifestations are against the will of God. When I seem to experience limitations, my soul has fallen into a state of separation from my I am presence. I actively accept God's abundant life, which is already mine. It is God's will that I have an abundant life, and thus I do not have to earn it. I now accept that God gives me freely. I am as God created me. I will to be the Christ on earth. I joyously surrender ego manifestations of a government or power elite that controls the majority of financial wealth on planet Earth. What I have miscreated is called by many names and seems to take many forms. They're all just shadows I've placed in front of the light and reality of God. I no longer accept that a small elite group controls the wealth on this planet and therefore creates an atmosphere of poverty and lack for others. I accept God's perfect nurturance for myself and all life. Poverty and lack are now healed and released. I am grateful that God's light and reality remain unchanged. I release all shadows, thus allowing God's light to shine into my life. I am as God created me. I will to be the Christ on earth. I joyously surrender the ego manifestations of having to work till I'm exhausted to make any progress in my life. I do not have to earn my living by a sweat of the brow. It's my Father, Mother's good pleasure to give me the kingdom, and I set myself free through non-attachment to things of this world. God is my refuge and security. I live in God. In God, I find refuge, strength, fulfillment of all my needs. In God, I find everlasting peace as well as my true identity. I am as God created me. I will to be the Christ on earth. And lastly, I joyously invoke the sincere and humble consciousness of God's servant, my sister, Mary Magdalene, rather. You who demonstrated the ultimate receptivity of the soul when you devoted your life and love to the Christ, your teacher, Jesus. Beloved sister, teach me to recognize the Christ in my brothers and to demonstrate my willingness to serve them. Awaken me to the power that comes from setting my ego aside and learning to understand that the last shall be first and the first shall be last. Teach me what it meant when the Master said to us all, there is no one to condemn thee, and neither do I condemn thee. So rise, be prosperous, sin no more. I am as God created me. I will to be the Christ on earth. And now we begin sealing and activating the power of this prayer in and through every part of our being. In the name of the Holy Father, Mother God, the Holy Son, the Christ, and the Holy Spirit. I accept that I am one with my I am presence, and that through that oneness I am sealed from all ego illusions and the appearances they project onto the screen of life. Today I am one with God and with my brothers and sisters and my true self. I affirm that Archangel Michael and his legions consume the planetary forces that are against my awakening of Christ consciousness. My Christ self exposes and consumes all power previously given to my ego and all its manifest forms. Having surrendered all illusions, the prince of this world comes and finds no resonance in me. My physical life and all its manifestations are the Lord's and the fullness thereof. We'll repeat 3 times as best you can. My physical life and all its manifestations are the Lord's and the fullness thereof. My physical life and all its manifestations are the Lord's and the fullness thereof. My physical life and all its manifestations are the Lord's and the fullness thereof. God is raising the earth to a glorious new day. Today I choose to live and be the will and abundance of my Father, Mother God. Today I choose the life of Christ. The kingdom of God is manifest in me and on earth now and forever. And so it is. Thank you. Thank you very much. A few centering breaths to sort of integrate this. And my gift, which is our gift, because even whatever I'm gifting has come in part by your generosity over the years. So thank you. And the gift that we're sharing financially with Unity today, it's also to start a new level of prosperity for Unity of Sedona. So I do this, thank you. I do this today, and anything you guys choose to add, like I said, add at the door. But all that'll do is bring us closer to that goal, a new level of what we'll choose to make on a regular basis. One thing I can tell you is that in my time of teaching, I love doing the work that we do here together. I really do. And in my time of teaching, it's just an amazing thing because I think that we have something fantastic here at Unity of Sedona. First of all, Sedona is in itself wonderful. And the people watching online, they've often not been here and heard of it. But we're bringing it to them. There's no time and distance, so they can still tap into this energy. They can feel it. But the Sedona vibe, pretty cool. My vibe, pretty cool. Not boasting, I'm saying I choose the awakening of Christ consciousness. I'm not like just a little meager consciousness kind of a person. I like to go all the way. Just connect with God. So that's what makes me unique. I don't get into any other version of what would make me something special. I'm just grateful that I choose God first. So when you have any teacher, God first, you mix that with Sedona, and even unity principles, unity founded in the awakening of Christ consciousness, this is wonderful trifecta going on. So there's a very powerful thing happening here. And at the same time, what I choose to teach, guys, the diversity, whatever people are needing. Michael, can you talk about this today? And off we go. The diversity and the depth at the same time. Not a lot of teachers want to or choose to teach like that. I've had people tell me, we want you to be a speaker at a conference, or we want you to be in one of those little spiritual movies that they make where they have, the talking head, the little bust of a teacher talking about spirituality. But I've had more than one, trust me on this, tell me their problem is two things most problematic with having Michael. One, he teaches on too many things they can't decide what to have him speak on. Two, can you back off on this God-Christ thing? Yeah, it's true. And as a human being, and as a teacher, there's times when I think, should I? Am I really? And I know the answer, guys. No, I can't do that. But when the world is calling for something, sometimes it's a temptation to think, maybe that's what I need to do. Is that going to help me sell a few more books? And maybe that'll bring the donations up, or whatever you think that you need in this world. The world will not give you the solutions to the world. So if I die tomorrow and have sold out, I know I wouldn't feel as complete. Probably would have to even come back just on that alone. Because I wouldn't be at peace with that at all. But imagine that. Too many topics, and can you back off on this God and Christ kind of thing? I've had unity and religious science churches tell me, I won't say which did which, but I've had them tell me, you back off on this God thing. Because we want people to be empowered themselves. The last shall be first and the first shall be last. Make yourself all empowered, you're nothing. And I'd say stuff like that, and they don't want to hear them from me anymore. So it's like just kind of nuts, but it is what it is. So I appreciate that folks that are here and folks tuning in, they must be willing to go somewhere else. So guys, not Unity of Sedona, we are in this together, and we must be ready for something quite powerful and quite unique. I know that down the road, when you guys donate, please donate to what I'm describing. All this uniqueness and all this beauty that we have. Whether it's $50 a month or $20 a week or whatever, please do what you can to help everything here be rich and prosperous so we can continue to give. And lastly, I just, like I said, I'm so grateful. I just can't say that enough, but I just feel so much gratitude for all that we share, all the power and it's just also Christy. I just dig it. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. But also, some of you have asked online and in person here. One of the things you seem to love is, what is this thing? How does Michael seem to speak to me? How does Michael know what I'm, well, it's not like I'm like, psychically, tapping in. But I totally believe that God is so non-dimensional, there is no time and limit. I truly believe this. God knows how to be in touch with every one of us and get me to say exactly what you were needing, exactly what you were thinking. Sometimes it's more this person than that. There's people online going, wait, I'm in my house, I'm in my room. How did he use the wording that was exactly what I was thinking, hearing, needing, whatever? I am saying it is because that's how connected we really are, and that is how much God truly loves us. I want Michael to say exactly the wording. I want him to do exactly what you needed in that moment. It could have been an inflection. It could have been clearing my throat. It could have been anything that would have been too supernatural for it to be a coincidence. Just in the moment he was talking about healing an old abuse, he did a mannerism that somebody that abused you once did to trigger that memory. That's how bizarre and surreal it is. And it's all happening so intelligently. God is the love behind all things. Even though we put veils of garbage, God is the love underneath or behind all things. And I'm so grateful, and I appreciate when you guys share that feedback. It's awe-inspiring, but not surprising that somehow something slipped through me this way and that way that was just the right wording. That's how much we're loved. And if it was the demonstration of prosperity or the talk on prosperity, whatever, thank you for hearing it. And if you're tired of hearing people talk about prosperity consciousness, and I know it's been made into quite a gimmick out there, please try to hear it at the different level it was meant to be today. Let's break all those patterns, programs, okay? We're going to do our closing song. This will be our love song. And as we prepare, I want to mention there's a new online course because some of you have asked me to go back and reflect. So if you want to join us, right now we're doing one on past lives, which I think has been great, a lot of fun. But we're going to start one on, for the last one for the year is in about a month, and you can sign up now, but it's on relationships and intimacy. So you don't have to be in a relationship, but it's about relationship with ourselves and others and intimacy. Sort of a blend of the intimacy online course we did and the relationships online course, because a lot of folks have asked for that. So we're going to do that. That'll be the last one for the year. And it'll be the last 1 month course probably for a couple years. Instead, we're going to do a 1-year course once we switch to finishing this one. All right? So we're going to do our love chant, and then we'll be done for today. Please soak it in, everything we've talked about. Prosperity, soak it in. If you have nothing, great. Good place to start. And start building prosperity. If you have, give. Everywhere you can, and receive everywhere you can. Give thanks everywhere you can. If you don't mind, we're going to stand. So the gents are just going to repeat holy, holy, holy 3 times to that beat. And the gals will do the love, love, love. It's easy wording, so you'll catch on right away, even if you're new to it. The last 2 words, no matter what your chant is, the guys or the gals, the last 2 words, holy love. Together, please. Love, 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 love. The gospel in one word is love. Love thy neighbor as thyself. Love, holy, love. Guys, holy, holy, holy. Come on. Holy, holy, holy. Pick it up. Holy, holy, holy. Holy, holy, love. Again, to all the people in the room. Good. To To everyone in the universe.
Love, 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 love.
The gospel
In one word is love. Love thy neighbor as thyself. Love, holy love.
That's a prayer that there is but love. It's a frequency, and it brings showering upon us prosperity, gold dust, healing, sparkles of light that heal. It brings us warmth and comfort. All that God is, visualize it pouring upon us individually and collectively, no matter where you're watching from or when. Feel that presence. It's absolutely there, and it's impossible for it to not be there. The light of God surrounds us.
We are the light of God.
The love of God enfolds us.
We are the love of God.
The power of God protects us.
We are the power of God.
And the presence of God watches over us.
We are the presence of God.
Wherever we are, God is, I am, we are, and so it is. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. Peace be with you all. Joan, put this donations, please. Shh. We're going to try to exit quietly. Remember, the cafe's open and the bookstore's open, but we'll try to exit quietly so that they can begin prayer now.